Park Tai-woo stepped off the transport ship and took his first breath of recycled station air. It smelled like metal and chemicals. Research Station Omega-7 floated somewhere in the middle of nowhere, far from Earth, far from anything he knew. He was a long way from home. A tall alien waited for him at the dock. The creature had pale blue skin, 4 eyes, and wore a robe that looked too expensive for a place like this. This was Overseer Talus, a Mendari. Tai-woo had read about them. They considered themselves one of the smartest species in the galaxy. They also considered humans to be only slightly better than trained animals. "You are the new fauna containment specialist," Talus said. It was not a question. His voice was flat and cold. "That's right," Tai-woo said. "I'm your new zookeeper." Talus made a sound that might have been a laugh. "We shall see how long you last." The previous 3 specialists did not survive their first month. One lasted only 6 days. Tai-woo said nothing. He had expected this. When the Galactic Union offered jobs to humans, they were never the good ones. Humans had only joined the Union 30 years ago. To most alien species, Earth was a small, violent planet full of primitive creatures who had barely discovered space travel. Humans got the jobs nobody else wanted, and this job was the one that nobody wanted most of all. Talus led him through the station. The halls were clean and white. Aliens of different species walked past them. Some looked at Tai-woo with curiosity. Most looked at him with pity. A few looked at him like he was already dead. "Your assignment is the Vrak habitat," Talus explained as they walked. The Vrak are apex predators from a death world. They have 6 limbs, natural armor, and claws that can cut through standard hull plating. We keep 12 of them here for research purposes. Your job is to maintain their habitat, ensure their feeding schedules, and keep them contained. What happened to the others? Tai-woo asked. "The specialists before me. They were killed," Talus said simply. "The Vrak are extremely dangerous. They cannot be trained or controlled. They respond to no commands. They are pure hunters, nothing more." They reached a large window. Tai-woo looked through it and saw the habitat for the first time. It was a massive enclosure filled with rocks, artificial trees, and dark corners. And moving through it were the Vrak. Tai-woo had seen pictures, but pictures did not capture the truth. The Vrak were terrifying. Each one was the size of a small car. They had 6 powerful legs, bodies covered in black armored plates, and heads filled with teeth. Their eyes glowed a faint red in the dim light. They moved like shadows, silent and fast. 12 of them. 12 perfect killing machines. "Any questions?" Talus asked. There was amusement in his voice. He expected Tai-woo to quit right there. "When do I start?" Tai-woo said. The Mendari's 4 eyes blinked in surprise. "Tomorrow. Your equipment and instructions will be in your quarters. I suggest you write any final messages to your family tonight." Tai-woo did not write any messages. Instead, he spent the night reading every file the station had on the Vrak. He read the reports from the dead specialists. He studied the feeding logs, the behavioral observations, everything he could find. Most of the reports said the same thing. The Vrak were mindless killers. They attacked anything that entered their habitat. They could not learn. They could not be reasoned with. But Tai-woo noticed something strange. The attacks were not random. Each specialist had died in a different way. The first was ambushed near the water source. The second was surrounded while checking the perimeter. The third was killed when he turned his back to refill the food containers. The Vrak were not mindless. They were testing, learning, adapting. The next morning, Tai-woo put on his protective suit and walked to the habitat entrance. A small crowd had gathered behind the observation window. Station workers, scientists, even some security officers. They had come to watch the new human die. Kim Yuna was among them. She was a xenobiologist from Earth, one of the few humans on the station. She had dark hair and worried eyes. She did not want to watch, but she felt she had to. Taiwu was her responsibility now. The door opened. Taiwu stepped inside. The habitat fell silent. The wrack stopped moving. 12 pairs of red eyes turned toward him. Taiwu stood very still. He did not run. He did not show fear. He remembered his training from years ago, back when he was a sergeant in the Korean Special Forces. He had faced dangerous situations before. He had faced men who wanted to kill him. The key was always the same: never show weakness. Never look away. The largest wrack moved toward him. It was bigger than the others, with deeper scars on its armor. The Alpha, the leader. It approached slowly, head low, watching him. Behind the glass, Yuna held her breath. Talis waited for the screaming to begin. The Alpha wrack stopped 2 meters away from Taiwu. It opened its mouth and let out a low rumble. A warning. Taiwu did not move. He met the creature's eyes and held the gaze. He did not blink. He did not flinch. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the Alpha turned away. It walked back to its place among the rocks. The other wrack relaxed. They went back to whatever they had been doing before. Taiwu was still alive. Behind the window, the crowd was silent. Yuna let out the breath she had been holding. Talis stared with all 4 eyes wide. The human had not died. The human had not even been attacked. Something had happened in that habitat, something that none of them understood. The wrack had looked at this small, soft, fragile human, and they had decided not to kill him. Taiwu began his inspection of the habitat. He moved carefully, but without fear. He checked the water. He checked the food stations. He noted which wrack watched him and which ones ignored him. He was learning them. And more importantly, they were learning him. This job was going to be different. 3 weeks passed. Park Taiwu did not die. Every day he entered the wrack habitat. Every day he worked among the 12 predators. Every day he came out alive. The station staff stopped coming to watch. The show was not exciting anymore. But King Yuna kept watching. She was a scientist, and she had started to notice things that others missed. Taiwu was not just surviving. He was communicating. She first noticed it during a feeding session. Taiwu raised his hand in a specific way before putting down the food. The wrack waited. They did not rush forward like animals. They waited until he stepped back and made another gesture. Then they moved to eat. He was giving them commands, and they were obeying. Yuna began recording everything. She set up extra cameras in the habitat. She tracked every movement, every sound, every gesture. What she found amazed her. The wrack were intelligent, far more intelligent than anyone had believed. They communicated with each other through low rumbles and body movements. They had a social structure, with the Alpha leading and others following in rank. They remembered individual interactions. They could plan, and Taiwu had figured this out in his first week. She confronted him one evening in the cafeteria. He was eating alone, as usual. Humans were not popular on this station. "How did you know?" she asked, sitting across from him. Taiwu looked up from his meal. "Know what?" "That they could learn. That they would respond to signals. Every scientist who studied them said they were mindless predators." He shrugged. "Scientists watched them through windows. I watched them up close. There is a difference. But how did you know what to do?" Taiwu was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I used to be a soldier. Before I came here, I trained men to fight, to work together, to follow commands. The wrack are not that different. They are aliens," Yuna said. "They are from a completely different world." "Yes, but they are pack hunters. They work together. They have a leader. They respect strength and hate weakness." He took a bite of his food. These are things I understand. Over the next few weeks, Yuna watched Taiwu's work more closely. She saw him develop a language of hand signals. Stop. Come. Wait. Go left. Go right. Simple commands, but the Vrak learned them quickly. The Alpha, the largest one, learned fastest. Taiwu had given it a name, though he did not tell anyone. In his head, he called it Sergeant. A private joke from his military days. Sergeant followed Taiwu everywhere in the habitat. It watched him work. It watched him move. When Taiwu gave a command, Sergeant responded first, and then the others followed. One day, there was a problem with the habitat door. It malfunctioned during maintenance. The security system failed for 30 seconds. 3 Vrak moved toward the opening. They could have escaped. They could have killed everyone on the station. Taiwu was inside the habitat when it happened. He saw the door malfunction. He saw the 3 Vrak moving toward freedom. He raised his hand. One gesture. Stop. The 3 Vrak stopped. They looked at him. They looked at the open door. Then they turned around and walked back to their places. Security Chief Lee Do-hyun was in the control room when this happened. He watched it on the monitors. He watched 3 apex predators, creatures that had killed experienced handlers from advanced species, obey a human hand signal. He did not sleep well that night. Do-hyun went to Overseer Talus with his concerns. The human is doing something strange with the Vrak, he said. He is training them. Talus dismissed his worries. Impossible. The Vrak cannot be trained. This is established science. I saw them obey his commands. You saw coincidence. The human is lucky, nothing more. His luck will run out soon. But Do-hyun was not convinced. He started watching Taiwu more carefully. What he saw disturbed him. Taiwu was not just teaching the Vrak to obey. He was teaching them to work together. He would position them in different parts of the habitat, then signal them to move at the same time. They would converge on a single point, approaching from multiple directions. Do-hyun recognized this. He had studied military tactics as part of his security training. What Taiwu was teaching the Vrak was a flanking maneuver, a hunting formation, a combat technique. He went to Yuna with his concerns. She listened carefully. I know, she said when he finished. I have been documenting everything. And you did not report it? Report what? That a human has made the greatest breakthrough in Vrak research in 20 years? That he has proven they are intelligent enough to learn complex commands. She shook her head. This is the discovery of a lifetime. I am going to publish it. The Vrak are dangerous, Do-hyun said. What he is doing is dangerous. The Vrak have always been dangerous. Now we understand them better. That makes them less dangerous, not more. Do-hyun was not sure he agreed. But he had no proof that Taiwu was doing anything wrong. The Vrak were healthier than ever. There had been no incidents, no injuries, no deaths. By every measure, Taiwu was the best handler the station had ever had. Meanwhile, Taiwu continued his work. Every day he taught the Vrak something new. Every day they learned faster. They trusted him now. They followed him not out of fear, but out of respect. He had been their zookeeper. Now he was becoming their commander. Sergeant stayed close to him always. The massive predator would sit beside him while he worked, watching the other Vrak, watching the door, watching everything. Like a soldier guarding his officer. Sometimes Taiwu would talk to Sergeant. The Vrak could not understand words, but it seemed to understand tone. It would rumble softly in response, a sound that might have been agreement or just acknowledgement. In those moments, alone in the habitat with creatures that could kill him in seconds, Taiwu felt something he had not felt in years. He felt like he had a unit again, a team. Soldiers who trusted him and whom he trusted in return. He did not know it yet, but soon that trust would be tested. Soon he would have to ask them for something far greater than obedience. Soon he would have to ask them to fight. The attack came without warning. Park Taiwu was in his quarters when the first explosion shook the station. Alarms screamed through the corridors. Red lights flashed everywhere. The station's computer announced an emergency. He ran to the command center. The scene there was chaos. Overseer Talis was shouting orders that nobody was following. Security Chief Lee Do-hyun was trying to coordinate his team. Kim Yuna was pulling up sensor data on a screen. "What is happening?" Taiwo asked. "Korath Raiders," Do-hyun said. His face was grim. "A full attack ship. They disabled our defenses in the first strike." Taiwo knew about the Korath. They were pirates who targeted research stations. They killed everyone, took everything valuable, and disappeared before help could arrive. Stations like Omega 7 were easy targets. Far from civilization. Weak defenses. Full of expensive equipment. "What about Commander Ren?" Talis demanded. "His military vessel is supposed to protect us." Yuna looked at her screen. His ship was hit first. It is drifting without power. No weapons. No engines. On the monitors, Taiwo could see Korath soldiers entering the station. They were brutal-looking creatures. Tall, covered in thick scales, armed with plasma weapons. There were dozens of them, maybe more. Do-hyun's security team tried to stop them. They failed. The Korath were trained killers. The security guards were not. Within minutes, the outer sections of the station fell. "We need to evacuate," Talis said. His voice was shaking now. "The escape pods?" "They destroyed the escape pods in the first attack," Do-hyun said. "We are trapped." Trapped. That word hung in the air. Everyone in the room understood what it meant. The Korath would sweep through the station, section by section. They would kill anyone who resisted. They would take what they wanted. No one was coming to save them. Taiwu was thinking. His mind worked through the problem like it had been trained to do years ago. He analyzed the situation. Their forces. The enemy's forces. The terrain. The options. There was only one option. "I need access to the VRAC containment controls," he said. Everyone turned to look at him. "What?" Talis said. "The VRAC. I need to release them." The room went silent. Then Talis laughed. It was a desperate, frightened sound. "You are insane. The VRAC will kill everyone on this station. They will kill us before they kill the Korath." "No," Taiwu said. "They will not. You cannot control them. Nobody can control them. I can." Do-hyun stepped forward. "Even if you could, they are animals. The Korath are trained soldiers with weapons. The VRAC are better," Taiwu said simply. Yuna was watching him. She had seen what he could do with the VRAC. She had documented months of training, months of progress. She knew that the VRAC followed his commands. But this was different. This was asking them to fight, to kill enemies they had never seen before, in a place they did not know. "Taiwu," she said quietly. "Are you sure?" He met her eyes. "I am sure." More explosions shook the station. The Korath were getting closer. On the monitors, Taiwu could see Do-hyun's remaining guards falling back. They were running out of time. Talis was still protesting. "I forbid this. I absolutely forbid this. The VRAC are Galactic Union property. They cannot be." "Give me the controls," Taiwu said. His voice was calm but hard. "Or we all die here." Do-hyun looked at the monitors. He looked at the approaching Korath. He looked at the terrified faces around him. Then he walked to a console and entered his security code. "The containment controls are yours," he said. Taiwu moved quickly. He went to the habitat section while Yuna followed him with a tablet, tracking everything. The VRAC were agitated. They could sense something wrong. The explosions, the alarms, the strange smells in the air. They paced in their enclosure, growling softly. Taiwu stood before the main door. He took a deep breath. Then he opened it. The 12 rack emerged. They moved slowly at first, smelling the new environment. Their red eyes scanned the corridor. They saw Taiwu standing there, and they stopped. He raised his hand. The signal for attention. Sergeant moved to the front. The Alpha stood before Taiwu waiting. Behind it, the other 11 rack fell into position. A formation. The formation Taiwu had taught them. For a moment, Yuna forgot her fear. She was watching something impossible. 12 apex predators, creatures that had killed everyone who tried to handle them, standing in perfect military order. Waiting for commands from a human, Taiwu began to move. He walked down the corridor toward the sounds of fighting. The Vrak followed, not like animals following food, like soldiers following their commander. They reached the first group of Korath near the science wing. 4 raiders were forcing open a door, trying to reach the staff hiding inside. The Korath turned and saw Taiwu. They raised their weapons. They did not see the Vrak at first. The creatures were silent, hidden in the shadows behind their handler. Taiwu gave a signal. 2 gestures. Flank. Kill. The Vrak exploded into motion. 3 came from the left. 3 came from the right. They moved faster than the Korath could react. The raiders fired their weapons, but plasma bolts bounced off the Vrak's armored bodies. Then the predators were among them. It was over in seconds. 4 Korath. 4 corpses. The Vrak regrouped without being told. They returned to formation and waited for the next command. Their claws were wet with blood, but their eyes were calm. Focus. Yuna watched from behind, her tablet recording everything. She had seen the Vrak hunt before, but this was different. This was not hunting. This was warfare. Taiwu moved deeper into the station. The Vrak followed. They found more Korath. The result was always the same. Taiwu would position his forces, give the signal, and the Vrak would strike. No warning, no mercy, no survivors. The Korath did not understand what was happening. They had expected frightened scientists and weak guards. They had not expected monsters from nightmares, attacking with military precision. Taiwu reached the command center and found a working console. He pulled up the station's internal cameras. He could see where the remaining Korath were grouped. He studied their positions. Then, he started giving orders through the station's communication system. Dohyun, keep your guards at Section 7. Do not engage. Just hold them there. He turned to his Vrak. He pointed at the screen. He made a series of gestures. Go here. Wait. Attack when you hear the signal. The Vrak split into 3 groups. They moved through the station like ghosts. The Korath never saw them coming. 20 minutes later, the main Korath force was surrounded. Dohyun's guards in front. Vrak on both sides. More Vrak behind. Taiwu gave one final signal. The slaughter lasted 7 minutes. When it was over, Sergeant returned to Taiwu's side. The Alpha was covered in blue Korath blood. It made a low rumbling sound, almost like satisfaction. Taiwu reached out and touched the creature's armored head. Good work, Sergeant, he said quietly. The Vrak rumbled again. Then it sat down beside him, watching the corridor, still ready. Still waiting. 40-7 minutes. That was how long the entire battle took. 47 minutes, and every single Korath was dead. Not one had escaped. The aftermath was quiet. Park Taiwu walked through the station, checking on each of his Vrak. Some had minor wounds from plasma fire. Nothing serious. Their armor had protected them well. He treated each injury himself, speaking softly to the creatures as he worked. The station staff watched from doorways and corners. They had seen what the wrack could do. They had seen the corridors filled with Korath bodies. They were grateful to be alive, but they were also terrified. Kim Yuna was not terrified. She was busy. Her cameras had recorded everything. Every attack, every formation, every command. She had documentation of something that would change xenobiology forever. The Vrak were not mindless beasts. They were intelligent enough to learn complex military tactics. They were smart enough to fight as a unit. This was the discovery of a lifetime. Commander, Ren's ship was repaired within 2 days. Emergency crews arrived from the nearest Galactic Union outpost. They found the station covered in Korath blood, and a human walking among 12 apex predators like they were his pets. Ren was a Kalashi, a species known for their military tradition. He had fought in 3 wars. He had seen many battles, but he had never seen anything like the footage from Station Omega-7. How did he do this? Ren asked, watching the recordings in the command center. He trained them, Doyen said. He stood beside the commander, looking at the same screens. Over months, he taught them to follow commands, to work together, to fight. The Vrak cannot be trained. Everyone knows this. Everyone was wrong. On the screen, they watched Taiwu give a hand signal. They watched 12 Vrak move in perfect coordination, surrounding a group of Korath. They watched the attack, swift, brutal, efficient. Ren was silent for a long time. Then he said, "Humans have been part of the Union for 30 years. We thought we knew what they were. We thought they were a young species, primitive, unimportant. And now?" Dohin asked. "Now I am not sure what they are." The footage spread quickly. Ren filed his official report, and within days, copies were circulating through military channels across the galaxy. Within weeks, it reached the public networks. Everyone saw it. Everyone was talking about it. A human. A single human from a small, primitive planet. He had taken 12 of the most dangerous predators in known space and turned them into soldiers. He had defeated a Korath raiding force without losing a single defender. He had done what no other species had ever managed. The Galactic Union High Command took notice. They sent a delegation to Station Omega-7. 3 admirals from 3 different species. They came with proposals and promises. They saw opportunity. "The potential is extraordinary," one admiral said. He was an older Mendari, much more serious than Teles. Imagine battalions of Vrak, trained and commanded by human handlers. They would be unstoppable on any battlefield. "A predator corps," another admiral added. She was from a warrior species Taiwu did not recognize. Living weapons. The ultimate military force. They offered Taiwu everything. Rank, authority, resources. He would lead this new program. He would train other humans to do what he did. He would be the founder of a new era in galactic warfare. Taiwu listened to their proposals. He asked questions. He was polite and respectful. Then he said no. "No?" The first admiral looked confused. "You refuse?" "I refuse. Perhaps you do not understand what we are offering. You would have complete authority. Unlimited funding. You would be one of the most powerful military officers in the Union." "I understand," Taiwu said. "The answer is still no." Later, Yuna found him in the habitat. The Vrak had been returned to their enclosure, but Taiwu spent most of his time there now. He sat on a rock while Sergeant rested beside him. "Why did you refuse?" she asked. Taiwu was quiet for a moment. He scratched Sergeant's armored head gently. The massive predator made a rumbling sound of contentment. "When I was a soldier," he said, "I trained men to fight, to kill. Some of them died because of orders I gave. Some of them killed because of orders I gave." He looked at Sergeant. "I came to this station because I was tired of that. I wanted to work with animals. Simple creatures. No more war. No more death. But the Vrak are not simple creatures. No, they are not. He smiled sadly. They are smarter than we knew. They can think. They can learn. They can choose. He shook his head. The admirals want to use them as weapons. Tools. But they are not tools. They are soldiers. And soldiers deserve better than slavery. Yuna sat down beside him. So, what will you do? Before Taiwu could answer, the habitat door opened. Overseer Talus entered with 2 security guards. His 4 eyes were cold with anger. Park Taiwu, he said formally. You are under arrest for unauthorized release of dangerous fauna. You violated station protocols and endangered every person on this station. You will be confined until the Union decides your punishment. Taiwu did not resist. He stood up calmly. But before the guards could reach him, the communication system crackled. Overseer Talus. It was one of the admirals. Release the human immediately. By order of Union High Command, all charges against him are dismissed. His actions saved this station and everyone on it. He is a hero, not a criminal. Talus's mouth opened and closed. He looked like he was choking on something. Finally, he turned and left without another word. The guards followed him. Taiwu sat back down. That night, Commander Ren came to see him. The Keloshi warrior stood outside the habitat, watching Taiwu through the glass. May I speak with you? Ren asked. Taiwu walked to the barrier between them. Of course. Ren was silent for a moment. Then he said, I have spent my entire career in the military. I have studied tactics from 100 species. I thought I understood warfare. And now? Now I know I understood nothing. Ren's voice was heavy. What you did with the Vrak. It was not just training. You made them trust you. You made them want to follow you. That is not something that can be taught. That is something you are. Taiwu said nothing. I need to ask you something, Ren continued. Human to alien. Soldier to soldier. Ask, are humans all like you? Can they all do what you do? Taiwu thought about the question. He thought about Earth, about his country's long history of war, about the things humans had done to each other and to their world. He thought about human cruelty and human courage, human weakness and human strength. No, he said finally. We are not all the same. But many of us... He paused. Many of us understand that sometimes you must become a monster to protect the people you care about. And we have had a lot of practice. Ren nodded slowly. You frighten me, he admitted. Your species frightens me. Good, Taiwu said. Maybe that will keep you from underestimating us again. He turned and walked back to Sergeant. The massive rack lifted its head and made a soft rumbling sound. A greeting. A welcome dot behind him. Ren watched for a long moment. Then he left. The galaxy was watching now. And everything was about to change. 2 weeks after the attack, Park Taiwu walked into Overseer Talus's office. The Mendare looked up from his desk with 4 suspicious eyes. What do you want? Talus asked coldly. He had not forgiven Taiwu for making him look foolish in front of the admirals. Taiwu placed a datapad on the desk. My resignation. Talus stared at the pad. Then he stared at Taiwu. For once, he had nothing to say. You are quitting? He finally managed. Now? After everything? Yes, you could have anything. The Union is calling you a hero. The military wants you. Research institutions across the galaxy are requesting you. And you are quitting? Yes. Talus picked up the datapad and looked at it. The resignation was simple and direct. No explanations. No demands. Just a formal notice. That Park Taiwu was ending his employment as a fauna containment specialist. Why? Talus asked. The question seemed genuine this time. not angry or suspicious, just confused. Taiwu did not answer immediately. He looked out the window at the stars beyond. Then he said, "When I took this job, I thought I would be caring for animals. Mindless creatures that needed feeding and cleaning. A simple life, no responsibility for thinking beings." He turned back to Talus. "But the Vrak are not mindless. They think. They feel. They make choices. And I cannot keep them in a cage." "They are dangerous," Talus said. "They have killed before." "So have I," Taiwu replied. "That does not mean I deserve to be locked in a habitat." He left the office without waiting for a response. Kim Yuna found him later, packing his few belongings in his quarters. She had heard about the resignation. "You have a plan," she said. It was not a question. She knew him too well now. Taiwu nodded. "Your research paper. It has been accepted for publication?" "Yes, it will be released next week. The evidence for Vrak intelligence is overwhelming. No one will be able to deny it." "Good." Taiwu pulled out another datapad. "I need you to do something else. I need you to testify before the Union Classification Board." Yuna took the pad and read it. Her eyes widened. "A petition for species reclassification. You want the Vrak declared a sapient species. If they are sapient, they have rights under Union law. They cannot be kept as research subjects. They cannot be used as weapons. They must be treated as people." It was a bold plan. A dangerous one. The Union had reclassified species before, but it was rare and difficult. There would be opposition. Scientists who did not want to lose their research subjects. Military officers who saw the Vrak as valuable weapons. Bureaucrats who did not want to deal with the complications. But Taiwu had two things working for him. First, Yuna's research was solid. The evidence for Vrak intelligence was too strong to ignore. Second, he was famous now. The hero of Station Omega-7, the human who had turned predators into soldiers. His voice carried weight. "I will do it," Yuna said. "But you know this will not be easy. Nothing worth doing ever is." The hearing took 3 months. Taiwu testified. Yuna testified. Commander Ren testified, describing what he had seen the Vrak do. Even Security Chief Do Hyun spoke in support, explaining how the Vrak had followed commands, made decisions, and fought with obvious intelligence. The opposition was strong. Overseer Talus argued that the Vrak were simply well-trained animals, no different from dogs or horses. Military representatives warned that releasing the Vrak would waste a valuable resource. Some scientists insisted that more research was needed before making such a drastic decision. But in the end, the evidence was too clear. The Vrak learned language. They communicated with each other. They formed relationships. They remembered the past and planned for the future. By every standard the Union used to define sapience, they qualified. The vote was close, but the petition passed. The Vrak were reclassified as a sapient species. They were no longer property. They were people. Taiwu was on the station when the decision was announced. He went to the habitat and entered alone. The 12 Vrak gathered around him. They knew something was different. They could sense it in the air and the excitement of the station staff, in Taiwu's own mood. "You are free now," Taiwu told them. He knew they could not understand his words, but he spoke anyway. "No more cages. No more experiments. You will have a world of your own." The Union had already chosen a planet for them, a world similar to their home world. Dangerous, wild, perfect for apex predators. The Vrak would be transported there and released. They would be monitored but not controlled. They could live as their nature intended. Sergeant stood before Taiwu. The Alpha had been with him the longest, had trusted him the most, had followed him into battle without hesitation. Taiwu reached out and placed his hand on the creature's armored head. "You were a good soldier," he said softly. "The best I ever commanded." Sergeant made a low rumbling sound. It was different from his usual noises. Softer, almost gentle. The transport arrived 2 days later. One by one, the wrack were moved to the ship that would take them to their new world. Taiwu watched from the observation deck. When Sergeant's turn came, the great predator stopped at the entrance of the transport. It turned and looked back at the station. Its red eyes found Taiwu behind the glass. Slowly, deliberately, Sergeant raised one of its front limbs. A specific movement. A gesture. It was a signal Taiwu had taught him months ago. A simple command between soldier and commander. It meant, until next time. Taiwu felt something tighten in his chest. He raised his own hand and returned the gesture. Sergeant held the pose for a moment. Then the massive predator turned and walked onto the transport. The door closed behind it. Taiwu watched the ship depart. He watched it until it was just a point of light among the stars. Then it was gone. Kim Yuna found him there an hour later. She stood beside him in silence. "What will you do now?" she finally asked. "Go home," Taiwu said. "Earth, I have not been back in years." And then? He thought about it. "I do not know. Maybe rest. Maybe find another job." He smiled slightly. Something simple this time. Something with actual animals. Yuna laughed. "Good luck with that." 3 days later, Taiwu boarded a transport heading for Earth. He carried one small bag and nothing else. His work here was done. Behind him, the station was already changing. News of the wrack reclassification had spread across the galaxy. Species that had been dismissed as animals were being re-examined. Questions were being asked about intelligence, rights, and freedom. And in military academies on a dozen worlds, a new course was being added to the curriculum. It was called Human Military Doctrine. Commander Ren had volunteered to teach the first session. He started each class the same way. He dimmed the lights and played the footage from Station Omega 7. Students watched a single human give hand signals to 12 apex predators. They watched those predators move in perfect formation, hunt as a unit, and destroy a superior force in less than an hour. When the footage ended, Ren would stand before his students and speak. "Humans do not fight fair," he would say. "They do not follow the rules you expect. They form bonds with creatures that should kill them. They turn predators into allies. They find ways to win that nobody anticipates." He would pause, letting the words sink in. This is why they win. And this is why you must never, ever underestimate them. Far away, on a planet called Earth, Part Taiwu stepped off a transport and breathed the air of home. It smelled like rain and grass and something he could not name. It smelled like peace. He smiled and walked forward into his new life, leaving behind a galaxy that would never see humanity the same way again. The Zookeeper had quit. But the legend was just beginning.